What's up, everybody? We are back for another episode of Bleav in Queens. I'm Joe Serralo. As always, my man Tyler Ward is in one of your corners on your screen. And the big man, the guy who gets the whole bottom half to himself, Anthony Recker, former New York Mets catcher. We've got a great episode coming at you. Look, the Mets just won. That's Recker's reaction when the Mets get 2 hit by the Rockies on a Sunday afternoon.
If you're watching on YouTube, you know he's wearing a really pissed off Mickey Mouse shirt at the moment.
He's got his angry Mickey shirt. Tyler and I are in the Rec fan club. We've got our Get Wrecked shirts, which of course you can get to Get Wrecked at Bleav.com/shop. We've got 6 different designs, but who wouldn't want a Get Wrecked shirt with the silhouette of Anthony Recker going yard in the 13th inning? You can't top that. And you can't top that this episode is brought to you, like every other episode, by our proud partners at BetOnline. Head over to betonline.ag. Make sure you get your latest odds, lines, news, and developments over there. And with your first deposit, use that first-time promo code Bleav50. That's BLEAV50, Bleav50 for your 50% first-time, one-time welcome bonus. BetOnline, folks, it's where the games begin. You've got MLB games coming up, playoffs just a month away, and of course, the NFL season is 2 weeks away, guys. Week 1 right around the corner. So head over to BetOnline to get in on the action. Gentlemen, I'm going to stop and let you guys start talking soon, but we've got a phenomenal episode here. Of course, we got the Rockies recap. Today's game stunk, but we still won 3 out of 4. Dodgers coming to town, and the big news. In concurrence with Old Timers Day this weekend, we've got our first guest of the season. Daniel Murphy will be joining the show momentarily. I'm thrilled. I can't wait to have him on. Rec, thank you so much for pulling this one off, reaching out to your guy.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have him on. I mean, Daniel Murphy, the former Rocky, right? That's why we brought him on, because we just played the Rockies. So 100%. We're bringing on the former Rocky, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's why. I'm glad to have. He's glad to do it. I'm excited to have him on. He's got a few things to say about Old Timers Day and the Mets, and it'll be a fun conversation.
Well, I want to hear what both of you, before Murph joins the show, have to say about Old Timers Day. Rec, what did you think? Mets pulled off their first Old Timers Day since 1994. Yes, that's before I was born, Tyler too. And it could not have been more of a success. They retired Willie Mays' number in a surprise move that, I asked my dad, who works for the team. I said, did you know this was happening? Surprised everyone. He didn't even know. No one at the stadium knew it was coming. Just another check mark for Stevie Cohen. He just seems to do everything right. What did you think about Old Timers Day?
It was great. When you talk about the Willie Mays retirement, I mean, they knew it was going to be a packed house. So this was awesome to do it kind of by surprise, not tell anybody. It was a really neat, just extra addition to what was an awesome day. Seeing all those former Mets out there, guys that I'd seen previously in the clubhouse, and a lot of guys that I hadn't. It was really good to see them bring back so many, especially getting some of the original 62 guys and 69 guys. And it was just really fun to see, Cleon Jones and Tommy Aggie. And there was just so many people there that I was just had so much fun watching out there on the field. It looked like it was a great time. Of course, the big names, Mike Piazza, Pedro Martinez, and, it's just Dave King. I mean, there were so many people there that it was just really fun to see. And again, just watching those guys all out there on the field, having a good time, having fun with it. Of course, we're going to see Daniel Murphy here in a second, but him being out there with those guys, it was really neat to see literally generation after generation after generation of Met. I didn't grow up a Met fan, but obviously I became one as a player. And so just you hear about all the history, you get to see it on the field together. It was really fun to see. Even Josh Tolley out there doing some catching, getting a base knock, little bunt hit or whatever it was. I don't remember. Oh no, he had a line drive up the middle. That's what it was. It was just fun to see. It was really fun, to get to see those guys be a part of this. And I know from speaking with a couple of them that they all just were treated so well and they all had such a great time there. So big props. I can't give enough to Steve Cohen, the front office, everybody there that kind of set this thing up and really gave these legends their due in Mets history. And they had a great time out there.
Yeah, it's hard to pull off a day where everything seems to go perfectly. Everything was flawless. Everything just went so well. And Steve Cohen and the Mets organization really, really managed to pull that off. Tyler, what did you think of the whole day and the events?
I think Rec just took, all the words out of my mouth, but I think in a nutshell, it goes down to Steve Cohen, right? I mean, you can tell that all these Mets alumni that to varying degrees maybe haven't been given the best opportunities in their post-playing career to return back at Citi Field and do things. So you can just tell the type of appreciation that everyone universally had for Steve. They want to make sure that he was in the team photo, all these little things. I just thought it was awesome because, again, to say Steve Cohen has had a drastic impact on this club, not just with the current roster, but Citi Field, the organization, and its history as a whole, and not even its full 2-year span, would be the biggest understatement imaginable. So again, to see guys like Mookie Wilson, Endy still having in the outfield was awesome. Bart on the bump, and you're seeing everyone and their mother complain like this guy can still throw gas, get him out of here. It looks like they did a quick rush of making him only throw to a couple batters before he was done. But overall, it was just a phenomenal experience. I loved every single part of it. Again, to see these different generations of Mets players to all different varying degrees. Again, some guys that had drastic, long-lasting impacts on the organization, others that were here for a short time, but a fun time, to all universally come together and be a part of something special that will be a consistent thing for the Mets now as we go into years going forward. I think especially with Willie Mays and his number being retired, that was absolutely perfect. I'm so happy what Steve Cohen has been able to do for this club in such a short period of time, and everyone truly looked like that they had a blast.
Yeah, it was a perfect event. I'm glad we're talking Willie Mays and the jersey retirement, because I actually have an internal argument with a couple of my coworkers here at Bleav, a couple of full-time guys who are actually a little older than me. I'm one of the younger guys at 24. They're like 27, 28. And this group of three in particular, the hosts of the charity stripe, they think that Mike Trout is the best baseball player ever. And I get it. Maybe a lot of people my age, Tyler, our generation, think that way because he's the best baseball player we've seen when he's healthy. But I'm sorry, to me, Willie Mays is the best baseball player of all time. So I know he only had 2 years with the Mets and they were at the very end of his career, but he was as important to New York as anyone. The Mets do a great job at honoring Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays. And so this was absolutely the appropriate move. Rec, what do you think? Best baseball player of all time?
Actually, yeah. Like I had this argument with some of the guys this is when I was in college. So this is a few years back, guys. This is a couple years ago. This was an argument we had as me and a couple of my roommates, guys that lived next to me in dorms and everything. And they were a fan of the times. They were into Barry Bonds, big time. And this was before anything came out about the steroids. This is actually like right after he broke the records. And at the time I said, to me, it's still Willie Mays. It always will be Willie Mays. It always has been Willie Mays. Look, I obviously didn't get to see this guy play, but I've watched enough of the film. I've seen him out there and I know all the numbers. And this guy literally did everything out there on the field that you could possibly do and gave his teams the best chance to win every time he was out there. And, if you want to talk other players, there are other names. There are so many greats of all time in baseball. Babe Ruth would certainly be among them. Henry Aaron, Jackie Robinson. There are many you can name, but certainly Willie Mays has always stuck out to me as the guy that I would go for. And I have, I have family. My wife's family's all out in California in the Bay Area. So when you talk Willie Mays, they perk up. They love to talk about it. So you get to hear their version of this and what they saw in him and what kind of player he was. So yeah, absolutely. I think Willie Mays, bar none, is the greatest baseball player of all time.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guy was, he was a 5-tool player to the max, hit nukes, best glove ever in center field. Speaking of guys, though, who hit nukes, particularly in October of 2015, ladies and gentlemen, joining the show, he is a 3-time All-Star, a 2-time Silver Slugger, and of course, the MVP of the 2015 NLCS, Daniel Murphy. Daniel, thanks so much for joining the show.
Cheers. Thank you guys for having me. I can't really tell. I'm flying the alumni colors from this weekend. Here we go.
Awesome.
Love it.
In there. Yeah. Figure it's still the weekend. We'll keep the good times going. Tyler, Joe, Rec, how you guys doing?
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, we're
Cheers.
doing great.
Thanks
I'm
for
good,
having
Murph.
me.
Good to see you, man.
Man, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. It was a fun weekend, fun day, and yeah, ton of fun. I'd almost like to hear it from the perspective of a Mets fan, because my wife and my mom, we were kind of talking on the way back at just the reception and how many people were in the stadium. And then I felt it as the buses came in, like it was a proper red carpet. And so I guess maybe I would ask you guys, like, what did you think of, like, maybe the day or the leading up to it? and then the unveiling. I heard you guys talking about Willie Mays too, like to keep that under wraps. I heard the tail end of Sandy Alderson. He was he got asked the question, how did it stay under wraps? Were you surprised? And I think he was. I'll probably miss it, but I'm always surprised when a secret stays a secret with the Mets or something like that. So, but
Yeah, that was
yeah, what'd
spot
you
on.
guys think?
I love the role reversal, Murph. I mean, it's amazing. You come on and you're asking the hard hitting questions right off the bat. That's a great little switch up. You know, we all loved it. It was I was actually just saying regarding, you know, the whole Willie Mays thing, how my dad actually has worked for the Mets since 2010. I worked for them 2015 to 2019. So thank you for making my first year there a really memorable one. But yeah, he didn't know it was coming. No one knew it was coming, and I thought that was just, you know, Steve Cohen continues to get everything right. You know,
and his wife Alex is killing it too, I believe. Yeah. Well, I won't say I believe. I know she was instrumental in allowing my wife, who founded a charity called Prom Series, which you know, focuses on you know, teenage girls who are in the foster care system. And so the Mets, you know, got the auditorium space. Alex Cohen, June, all the wives, Erica Scherzer, Stacey DeGrom, and so we let them. They put on a proper show for about 20 girls who are in the foster care system. Got to watch Jake pitch on Thursday, which I got to see. I was about 3 rows away because I stole my agent's seats, and I was just far enough away that I thought I was safe because it was coming out of his hand good. So no, it was kind of a bit of a week for us because my wife and I, we got in Wednesday morning, and then she hosted an event, you know, with the help of the Mets and everyone there, and Steve Cohen and Alex, and you know, it was a fun week for us, honestly.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Tyler, I know you're dying to get in there, so I'll stop hogging the mic and I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that you brought up Alex, especially because, you know, since Steve Cohen has come in, you know, the reins as a new owner for the Mets, not just himself, but Alex has had a helping hand in a lot of things, even when it comes down to even, you know, offseason acquisitions, you know, negotiations with players and really just trying to amplify what they're trying to do now with this new Mets regime. So my question to you, Daniel, is from afar, from what you've seen again in a small sample size, what has been your immediate reaction to the success Steve Cohen has had with the Mets thus far? And really kind of, does there feel like there's been a drastic change within the organization since then? What's your take on all that?
Might be having some tech difficulties here.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, right on cue when we have our first guest.
Yeah,
I think we lost Murph.
I lost you guys.
Okay. What's the last thing you heard me say, Murph? Do you know?
I think we were talking about maybe some of what. Sorry, I'm on the move right now in the dark.
No, you're
house.
good.
I'm sorry. About kind of maybe some of the things that Steve Cohen's been able to do and the energy he's brought since taking ownership. That may be paraphrasing somewhat.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, not only him, but Alex. I know you expanded a little bit on your charity work that you're doing and how she's had a great impact on that array. But yeah, just overall, I want to know what is kind of your standpoint from someone that, of course, wasn't a part of the organization per se as a player during everything that transpired, but has been able to witness things now as an alumni. Like, are things pretty drastic in your opinion, just since Steve Cohen has come in? Like, I really want to pick your brain and just see what your opinions are on that.
Yeah, I would say in regards to that, I wouldn't call it drastic. I did like the idea of him kind of getting a pulse of the fans and what were some of the things that they would like to see. And then we got to experience one of them. And I think the black jerseys were one as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And so I thought that was really cool. And then as you were asking the question, what came to my mind was the product and what the guys are doing on the field, because that's what I get to see most often. And so with the hiring of Buck, and what it appears he's been able to do with this club, as my iPad slips all over the place, but what he's been able to do and have his I would say temperament on this club. One of the things he did early in the year when he had that rule change or that rules infraction that he knew about. Do you guys remember that?
The Dodgers game when the Mets were up 5?
Yeah, he knew a rule that you had to really be invested in to know, and you're in it. And I remember they were explaining it on MLB Network, and I was thinking, I really like baseball. How the hell does he know that rule? Like, where did you dig that out? And he knew it, and he knew that he knew it. And so I feel like I've said this, but this team that I'm seeing is you can see them competing more and more on each pitch. And it's that choice to compete, I believe, on every single pitch, because as there become less teams in October and in September, each pitch is that much more important. And it's only checking in on every single one. And it costs something, because you're not always going to get what you want, even though you're checked in on every pitch. Sometimes you get beanbagged, but, such is life. So that's what I've been watching, and that's what they look like. Like, they're competing like maniacs out there.
Yes, they
Murph,
are.
I'm gonna pull this back a little bit, because I know you came in here asking us questions because you don't like the spotlight on you. You want to push it on other people. You don't want it on you. Well, I'm gonna put it on you because I love you, and that's just what's gonna happen. So, Murph, you got to be a part of Old Timers Day. This is an easy question, I think. But what was, to you, what was the most humbling, the most unexpected? Tell us about your experiences, because you got to be a part of something and do something with some players that have been, to Mets fans, these are our legends. These guys nothing bad can be spoken in the breath of their name, like literally for the, essence of time. So tell us about your experiences with these guys and kind of take us behind the scenes as to what you got to be a part of with Old Timers Day.
Okay, I would say the first one that was probably the most humbling and surreal and like awestruck moment was Cleon Jones. We were in the third base dugout, and Cleon Jones came up to me and kind of put his arm around me. He was like, I just want to let you know that like you could really hit. And I was sad to see you go when you left. And I was like, say what, man? Like on the knee. Like, we didn't play a Mets game without Cleon, like right there, just sticking that ball. And I was like, man, like that was really cool. And then honestly, the reception Thursday was unexpected. You kind of, maybe in the Old Timers game, some expectation of a reception. The fans get to choose how they want to receive you. But then Thursday, a bit impromptu, was it was really humbling. It was a bit emotional. And then the reception, this is funny because Hosey was right next to me, and Hosey doesn't miss stuff because he's sharp, man. So I get announced and I come out, and like I get emotional again, like, emotional. And then I get down the end of the line, and Hosey goes, "Oh, hey, puppy, don't cry, man." And I was like, you see, I was like, and so, man, Hosey was great to be around. Got to do an interview with Hosey and TC, Steve Gelbs, and like, that was a treat. Like, Hosey just seems so excited to be back. You know what I mean? Almost killed Hojo at first base. Did you guys see that? I love you,
I told
Hojo.
you were going to hurt somebody.
No, it was a great time.
Amazing. Hey, Murph, I think that if I'm not mistaken, Wayne Randazzo might have alluded to this when he was introducing you guys and doing the lineups. But one of my favorite stories about you, and I know it's my pops' favorite, so he's glad I'm bringing this up, is I don't have all the details, so I'm going to ask you to give the full story. But something along the lines of you, I don't know if it was in the minors or when you got called up, being asked what position you play.
Oh, yeah.
And answering, I'm a number 3 hitter. Can you give the full story there? Because I love that confidence,
I could give,
man.
Yeah, confidence, naivete as well too. Kind of like Frodo Baggins running off into an adventure he doesn't even know he's getting into. So I was a JU, and I have my high school hat on right now. But I went to Jacksonville University, and I was a freshman. And it was like, we're going around, we're introducing ourselves. There's like 35 guys in there, and like there's men in there, like 22, fifth year men that know what a weight room is. And I'm not a man. I'm 18 years old, but I just got done like banging on the summer circuit, and I was like swinging it well, feeling good with the wood in my hand. Okay, so we're introducing himself. I'm like, yeah, I'm Daniel Murphy. I went to Inglewood High School, and I bat third. And it's like, to hear myself is like somebody who's been like stone cold humbled by this game, to say something like that was like, yeah, that's what I said, man. And I think though, the skipper loves it now. Like our skipper, Terry Alexander, he tells the story. He loves it. And I'm like, yeah, I was a real jackwagon doing it. But yeah, that's kind of the way the story goes. But we got done with the thing, and like, I was kind of like, all the boys were heading to the cage, and like, that's where I wanted to hang out. And I was like, I don't know if I bat third today, but maybe one day I'll hang out in the cage with you if you want to try. Like, maybe I'll bat fourth. You know what I mean? But so I like to hang out in the cage.
That's amazing.
Hey,
I'm glad
place,
you
man.
cleared that up because I thought it was like in the minors with the Mets. I didn't
No,
realize that
game.
was freshman
Nah,
year.
I had been humbled too. By the time I got to the minor leagues, I had Jesus had taken one of my knees for a bit. So it's like, and you got to catch that baseball too, which is difficult at times. So yeah, it wasn't any more of that. I was more humbled necessarily.
I love it. T, hop in there.
Okay, so unlike Joe, I am more of like kind of a new age Mets fan where like I always have been a Mets fan my whole life. My dad is from Queens, right down the block from Shea Stadium and everything. But for me personally, I didn't really get deep dived into Mets fandom. And Murph, are you hear me? You still good?
Yeah, I got you back on. You know what? This time I didn't panic. I was stayed in the same place. I'm sorry. Reload it. I think the last thing was I just talked.
It's only when I talk. Should I just shut
I
up?
think that's a sign. I think that this is a
I
three-man
think
episode,
do
Tyler.
I just need to like text you what to say for me, Joe?
Yeah, there we go.
Hold on. We'll give
We'll
it a
put you in the
second.
mailroom. You can send Murph a Get Wrecked shirt while Wrecker and I do the interview.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we might as
He'd
well.
rock
but
it.
yeah,
He'd rock it. He's got the high school hat
Oh.
on. He'd wear a rec shirt.
Okay.
By the way, I don't know if Murphy knows this, but he mentioned Jacksonville. Jacksonville University played St. Bonaventure the 1970 Final Four. I don't know if Danny knows that. Oh, is he back?
He was back.
He was.
Yeah, hold on.
Shortly.
We'll give it a minute. It's okay.
We're sliding
little
around
history
down
there.
here. We keep
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
things
flipping
up.
because I wanted to make it look like you guys are kind of looking at each other when talking. So it's not like he's looking right in the corner. Okay.
True.
Here we
Hopefully.
go. Okay.
Oh no.
Again.
Might need to switch rooms. No worries.
good show walk.
Yeah. What I did want to say though, Joe, honestly, if
You're
this
asking me questions now?
no, I mean at this point, maybe I'm
He's
the
back, he's
issue
back.
here. Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
so. No, I don't think. I mean, I don't. I feel like you
hear us,
guys
Murph?
do this
You're-
all the time. I got you guys. Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
me?
you got us. Okay.
Cool. So
Okay.
Tyler, I think you were saying that 2015 was like the first year you followed the Mets, right?
Correct. Like first year that I really got heavily into them because of the fact that, I had always been a baseball and a Mets fan, but naturally growing up, I was more into other sports, especially because baseball wasn't something that I played. But needless to say, halfway through the season, my cousin told me, you're younger than me. He's like, Tyler, you got to watch this series against the Nationals. I'm like, why? He's like, because if the Mets win this series, they're leading the division for the first time in a while. So I'm like, okay, watch that series. We know what happened. Then, of course, Cespedes, everything Flores, the whole 9 yards. And then Murph, you did what you did, of course, in the playoffs, which was an amazing run. But that was like that huge first taste of Mets fandom for me. And then I see next year I'm going to a game and it's against the Nationals. This is your first year in DC. And before I even enter, because I'm stuck in traffic, I see it's 1-0 in the first. And I look at my buddy, I'm like, it was Murph, wasn't it? And he's like, yeah, it was Murph. It was a bomb. I was like, okay, here we go. So my question to you, Murph, is someone that, again, had this long history in the Mets organization to going from being a Mets hero, especially come playoff time, to really a Mets killer. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You absolutely pistol whipped this team when you played them. So question is, what is it like being on both sides of the spectrum, right? Going from the Mets to the Nationals, being a part of both sides in that rivalry during the late 2010s?
So, man, even if you're starting 2010s, it makes me think that, they came in and treated us like they were better than us and kicked the crap out of us for a long time. And it was unpleasant. Like they'd come in and, Zim would bang one in the right center field gap and we'd have to chase it down and they just beat us up, And so
That was during your outfield days, huh, Murph?
man, don't be mean spirited, Rick. Yeah, I wandered around out there for a bit. But so like as they were getting good, they just kind of beat us up. And so in 2015, we kind of showed up earlier than we thought, and then like Sandy makes those moves at the deadline and like that move. But we still had Clippard as well too. And made Kelly Johnson and Uribe. And so, I remember kind of the 2015 season as there being not one singular moment, but one moment where I was like, oh, this is different. TC called in, I think it was me, Lucas Duda, Flo, and Tejada. And it was like, we're getting Juan Uribe and Kelly Johnson, like real major league players. And it's like, it's a meritocracy. the at-bats will go to who plays well. And I was like, oh, snap. I ain't never been in one of these before. And so, but it kind of started sharpening us up. You know what I mean? We all had to get a bit sharper. I had to get out of the way, and you could feel it kind of building up. And Seth comes in, and, you know, he carries us. And then, so yeah, through that, you know, 2015 and that run, you know, through Washington, you know, no other way to really say it. You know, we ran him down and we ran past him, and we didn't let him catch us. It was wild. I mean, I remember I said, you know, TC talked about the sweep at home, which I remember how loud the place was, because it was like I feel like we got back and David was in the dugout because I was watching a replay of Duda's homer, and like I'm going nuts, and we're, you know, I'm losing my voice, and David's next to me, and it's great to have him back because, you know, he's working to get ready. And it was after that series we went down to Miami, and I think we took 2 out of 3, and that is not an easy place to take 2 out of 3 from, man. Man, you get sucked in down there. Like, there's no energy, and I don't mean to take anything away from Miami. It just you have to bring your own energy, and we were coming off at this high, and we came in late because it was a Sunday nighter that we finished up with, and, you know, Conforto's old young behind, like, cracked like 2 while we were down there, and we ended up taking 2 out of 3, and it was like, oh, that's how you want to pin it. You know what I mean? You go and beat those teams you're supposed to. And then we showed up in DC, and I was like, man, it's like, we showed up in second, we'll leave in first. I didn't really know if I meant it, but we were in the, like, going to get our keys to the room, and I was like, why not? I'll say it. Let's see how it lands. And we beat them up there. You know what I mean? And so we're off and running. And then 2016, yeah, I swung the bat like well against the Mets. I saw it well.
That's an
and
understatement. Yeah.
I was kind of
MVP voting or something that year. I mean,
okay. Well, so I was actually thinking about this because I texted a good friend of mine and who was in DC, is Ali Modami, and he was worked in the cage with us, left-handed, worked in Philly, and then in DC's out in LA with the Angels now. And I was just thinking, and I actually thanked him because, like, I can get really detail oriented into things. And for some reason, when I got to DC, what my focus was trying to find every single advantage I could on the opposing pitcher, at least the starter. You know what I mean? Maybe I'd get into the bullpen, but I got into this kind of positive feedback loop where I was fortunate enough to swing the bat early with DC. And then I'd get into some film and I'd watch the opposing pitcher and I'd paint pictures of where I wanted the ball to start, where I wanted it to finish, and where I wanted to hit it. And I just got lost in that world. And this guy would get lost in there with me, and he'd let me ramble like you guys are right now. You know what I mean? I'd get lost in this world, and I did it the whole year. You know what I mean? We had kids and we had a house in DC, and my wife allowed me to do it because I'd come home, and, you know, the nights we needed to talk, we talk, and then she'd go to bed and I'd eat and I'd watch the guys out west because I was kind of like, I had already gotten a couple knocks and I was like, what are you guys going to do? Because this stuff is hard, but I got mine tonight. So I'd watch them with this kind of joy about, like, already having had some success. And that was kind of the whole year, you know, and then we, you know, didn't play as well in the postseason. But yeah, that would have been like the 15-16 kind of front back of it, of the either side of it, just in those 2 years. From a personal perspective and a little bit further.
Murph, I can tell you that you talk about getting lost in it, and I got to play with you for 3 years. I got to play against you a little bit in 16. I remember you coming up as a national, and I was behind the plate as a Brave, and that was just weird. But talking to you about hitting was not like talking to anybody else I had ever met about hitting before. The way you spoke, the words you used, the detail, the level of detail you would get into. This is me personally. I just want to know this. Where did that come from? Like, when did that start? Those kinds of conversations where you really got that locked in. Was that a love of the game? I mean, obviously it has to be on some level, but where did that detail come from? Because to me, I got 3 boys upstairs. I can teach them so much, but I can't teach them what you can teach them. And the way you spoke words to me, it was like, I remember you talking about feeling the earth, and it just blew my mind. So I got to hear where this came from so I can relay some of that wisdom onto them.
So I would say that the first thought I had when you said details, it made me think of my father, because he had a lawn maintenance company here in Jacksonville, and because he was smaller and couldn't get as much work done, he had to be very detail oriented. So he would plant flowers, and he would make sure that the irrigation was always working, just a bit of the extra mile for his main client, and where he knew the substance of his revenues were going to come from. So I was like, okay. And he showed up every day, and it was 150 degrees out here in the summer, and he posted every day cutting grass. And I was like, okay, it appears as if you have work to do and you show up voluntarily, and she is, then this is the way you do it. Well, I kept signing up for the baseball. You know what I mean? So I was like, I'd kind of pinned myself into, this is the work. That's what it looks like to do it. And then I found that you could go deep into it. Now, the defensive part didn't really ever interest me that much, as far as like the physical reps of it. I didn't enjoy. If I wanted to rep, I wanted to be hitting something. Like I wanted to feel the barrel. I did enjoy the part of defense where you could turn defense into attack a bit. You know what I mean? I liked the chess match out there. I just didn't always. I took a lot more reps hitting. You know what I mean? And then
that's when you would take off running after I called a pitch. The pitcher's in the windup, and you just take off running to the hole because you thought the ball was going.
Yeah, I was like, hey, you know, like the chess match. You know, I would do that. Well, the funny thing is, I would. There were certain guys too, because you know, like Yachty and Goldschmidt, like and Buster. If you showed them that 3-4 hole, especially with runners out there at second base, they would just take it, and I'd be like, no, absolutely not. I'm going to close down. I wanted to close down the visual. You know what I mean? I was like, there's no space over there. So yeah, I run around like a crazy person, like full stop. Like I ran the bases like that too. It's just like, and so, but with the hitting, that really attracted me, probably because of the individual battle that you have with the pitcher. So he's trying to execute his plan. He's trying to figure out how much of his strengths he's going to stick to, and does that match up with your weaknesses, hopefully, and vice versa. And it's like the pitcher initiates the interaction and the exchange, right? He's the initiator, but he doesn't get to pick when I start. That blew my mind when I started thinking, you know what I mean? It's like you start when you want. I get to start when I want. That means I could sometimes be waiting for you. If I can get the count in my favor, I can wait for you. What's the count in my favor? All of them except for 2 strikes. Maybe some of them even with 2 strikes, depending on the situation. Can he punch me? Can he not? Take a shot. You know what I mean? So like you can have all sorts of stuff going on in there, and I kind of got lost in that world. And then I'd get to go play it out kind of each night and express myself. And the mechanics I feel like I probably had worked on for so long turned into like this expression on the field. I started kind of painting, especially in batting practice. Like I hit a ton of golf balls now, like when I can get out there, because it lets me kind of paint just a little, just enough, because I've got a ton of ground balls in there in my golf game too. Like I got a ton of double play balls, but I hit just enough of them on the barrel to like replicate batting practice, because I love to hit BP. Like I love to hit BP.
That's awesome.
I'm playing this over again for my kids later because that was awesome.
Yeah, I got a 10-year-old brother, and he's a lefty, and he's got to watch that too. Murph, you know, it's funny. You mentioned that game earlier this year with Buck in LA, knowing rules that Dave Roberts didn't know, the umpires didn't know. And I'm a Met fan who just moved out to LA. So I was at that game watching that all happen. And I just want to mention that I was getting chirped the entire game. So you mentioned how you kind of ran the bases recklessly at times. I did mention to a few Dodger fans that someone should have been covering third in Game 5 of the NLDS back in 2015. I used that in my arsenal a couple times that night.
Yeah, so I heard the first part about Buck being in LA. Sorry, because I keep getting cut out. And then the rule, and then the last part I heard was it first to third in LA?
Yeah. So I was saying I'm a Met fan who New York born and raised. I moved out here in April.
Okay.
And to LA. And so I was at that game, and I was getting crap all night. Dodger fans are ruthless. And so I did use that a few times, like, hey, why wasn't anyone covering third back in Game 5 of the NLDS? What happened on that play? What was the breakdown, and how did you just – I mean, that's a split-second decision and a really risky, ballsy one. So, like, what went down there on your end?
Depends on what your definition of a split second is. So when I was 19 years old in a tournament against, I think it was like South Alabama, somebody did that to me, went second to third with the ball, like, you know, nothing going on, and he just went on me, and I thought, that's freaking cool, man. But I should never let that happen to me again, because that would be like, that was the chess match, a part that I really enjoyed. And so I always started looking for that. And like Rec knows, Andrelton Simmons always looked for it. Desi always looked for it. I'd have to yell at those dudes, man. I'd be like, hey, I see you. Like, stop trying to go on me. Like, just let me relax out here. I can't catch the ball, or I'm trying to catch it. You can't be like trying to steal 90 feet on me. Like, I'm just trying to relax and get ready for the next pitch.
All right, well, we'll catch him. We'll catch him again with the second half of that story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Shortly, unforeseen stuff. It's technology. It's a blessing and a curse. It's the world we live in, 2022, and you can't bank on it, guys. So all right,
yeah.
Well,
so no, I think I think, and so what I did, I guess not what I did, but in that game, they were doing the shift, and this was the early stages of the shift. And so Duda takes that 3-1 pitch, because it wasn't 3-2. I wasn't in motion. It was a 3-1, and nobody kind of knew. And like Gary Cedarstrom kind of hesitated, and Duda did one. And so I had been looking for it. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't saying I wasn't looking for it while we get there. And so I kind of take off a little faster than I wanted, sincerely. And so I pull it back, because I want Swaggy. He's playing second now, but he's the third baseman, Justin Turner. Yeah, Justin Turner. I was like, I need Swaggy to not Swaggy will sniff you out, man. Like, I was like, okay, nuh-uh. So I kind of pull it back, and I feel good heading in. All right. So I'm going, and I'm kind of, as I approach the bag just a little bit, I give a little peek, because I know at this point in my heart, at least with my decision making of what I'm trying to do, I'm not concerned with Justin anymore. He may still get me, but I'm not concerned with him. It's now Zach. I'm looking for Greinke. So I give, because Greinke pays attention too all the time, and so I give like a subtle peek over my shoulder to see where he is, and I think he's frustrated. Maybe he's not as concerned with me as that would deter me from my next movement, which is I make eye contact with Corey Seager. And at that point, like, at least in my heart, he sees like, this is going down and I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And I make a break for it. And well, I'm just like running as fast as I can. And I don't even realize, because I guess in the replay, Tough is like cleaning the base off, like with his foot. You know what I mean? He's like trying to get it prepped for, first and second and whatever the heck's happening next. And,
Tough, not paying attention. Shocker.
Well, no,
Shocker.
I didn't mean it like that. I was just saying Tough was like cleaning shop over there. You know what I mean? And so, I come flying in there. You know what I mean? Like a maniac, and I'm like going crazy, and not out loud, audibly, like in my heart, like I've got to get there, because like, man, like I run the bases like a crazy person. I got to get there. Like you taking a shot, and so I did. I made it. And then Trav hits the sac fly. Jake battled so hard that day. Turn it over to Syndergaard. And then Greinke and I played a chess match. I think my third event. We played a chess match. He's a good chess player, man. He's a good chess player.
Yeah. I just got to follow up on that, because, you were in one of those zones where everything was going right. And I've actually mentioned you a couple times in past episodes how you were one of those guys who, when you were hot at the plate, your fielding seemed to improve drastically when you were in a hot streak, when you were in a zone at the plate. And even looking at something like base running, just how much did it matter for you when things were going well at the dish? How much did it improve your overall game, and you just were locked in on every facet?
Yeah. I think as you asked that, the thought I have is like each game I think has a pulse to it. And so I think maybe as a player, I was trying to find the pulse of the game. So one of the things that was probably a big turning point in my career is when I left the video in the video room, except for like balls and strikes, because I still had a struggle with that. Like the umpires are still, like, I've had to ask for forgiveness.
Were you yelling Thursday night when you were at the game? You had to be talking to the umpire.
No. I did introduce myself. And now I've lost my train of thought. Goodness, what was I talking about before that?
Leaving video in the video room. And
yes, thank you very much. Each game has a bit of a pulse. At least that's the way I viewed it. And so if you could find that rhythm of it, you could almost find ways to express yourself in all facets of the game.
This is just StreamYard at its finest.
Oh yeah, no, we'll give it a minute. It's fine. It's funny because every single time that I've done interviews with someone else using this, the same things happen to me.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, you guys are too gracious. Like the pulse of the game, though, I felt like if you could find that, then it would just kind of help you you could get involved in the game. And so when I started observing the game, and I would watch kind of from I wouldn't call it the top step, but just a place I had perches of where I wanted to watch the game, watch the opposing pitcher, and just try to get a feel from it. And then just the more you got a feel for it, the better I played. You know what I mean? I guess is the best way, because you were maybe more anticipatory, I would say, like the game, when you're, well, I guess that asks you, Rec, like, do you feel like there's a difference between you're anticipating and you're on the front foot? You know what I mean? When you're attacking, when you put yourself in the position of authority, you know what I mean? To like dictate the play.
As a catcher, I was always a game caller, right? Like I had to know kind of I had to try to know what the opposing hitter was thinking, what my pitcher wanted to do, utilize the game plans. Like, you mentioned this earlier, you've got your pitcher strengths, you've got the hitter strengths. How am I going to combine the two? Where am I going to, where are the hitter's weaknesses? Where am I going to exploit those? Well, there were times when you get in a zone, whether it's offensively, defensively, whatever it is. And yeah, you feel like you're more on that front foot where you're an aggressor rather than trying to react to what they're doing. You're the one causing the reactions from them. And that's when you start to feel like, yeah, it's a chess match and I'm in his head right now. Like as a catcher, I love that, being in a hitter's head, almost knowing like, what is this guy thinking? Where's he going? What's his thought process? And then as the at bat plays out and you just own him every step of the way.
You take him where you want him to go.
100%. You literally just take it felt to me like I was taking his soul, and it was so fun. I mean,
well, to a certain extent you are, because you never get that at bat back. So there's a little piece of you that you leave there, and you have to hopefully take whatever you can glean from it with you. That's interesting you say that. So Worth used to tell this story about I think he was taking about Bryce. I think that Chooch had kind of just done Chooch sort of things to Bryce when he was younger, not the Bryce now that's, MVP, but I think Bryce went in there and started wailing away on the helmet.
Chooch is Ruiz from Philly.
Oh yeah. Carlos Ruiz.
We know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think Worth's up to bat and he can hear Chooch under his breath, just harder as Bryce is wailing away. And it's like, oh my goodness, man. These guys are cutthroat, you know what I mean? But that's like, it brings the best out in us. You know what I mean? It just, because that it's not malicious. It's just like I'm here to find every area in which we can put ourselves in a position to win. And it's like, harder.
I got a fun one for you for that, because this is something I didn't even think about it until later in my career. But my first at bat in the big leagues, I'm against the Yankees. I'm in Oakland A at the time. I step up to the plate and Russell Martin looks at me and he goes, "You came up with the A's, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like you came up through the minor leagues with the A's, right? Yeah. First pitch fastball right down the middle. I took it. And I never thought about it until later. And that was him just going, "Oh yeah, you're going to take because you're an Oakland A.
You're going to give me one."
I was like, that little, I didn't like literally years later. I was like, wait a minute, unbelievable. Like they're looking for any little ad, get in your head. Like, man, come on, like that's not even fair. What are you doing to the kid? Let's go. I was like 27 making my major league debut. Give me a shot, guys. Come on.
That's crazy. I love that at the same time.
Morty, I was just gonna say hop in there, but it looks like Murph might have froze, so it's appropriate. It's your turn.
Okay. I don't want to hold you up too long, Murph, but I did want to mention.
No, I feel bad. I feel like I've got the cutout and wrecked like the light bulb. That's awesome going off of like that guy figured out I was going to give him a strike. And well, then as you get older and you realize how important strikes are, it's like I think the whole game, it's a fight over the strike zone. It's like, man, just stole one from me for free. You know what I mean? And I had to learn that to know not to give it away so easily.
Right. And it took me years after that to figure that out too. That's adjustments. It take a while sometimes for me.
It's a hard league, man. It's a hard league, man. That's why I left after the 20th season. Y'all throw too hard. I'll see y'all later.
Okay, so I know Joe want to ask this. So Joe, if you want to go ahead, but I was
Go
going to
ahead, Sid.
mention,
Go ahead,
you
man.
know, we're really curious, especially as Mets fans. You gained to witness Jake, in his early years, of course, and being a part of what he is about to what he is now. We're really curious to see what your perspective is on DeGrom as he's grown over time to being, and biasly we will say the best pitcher in baseball. I know I will at
Mm.
least, and then of course being with Max Scherzer with the Nationals to now not just being on both sides of the spectrum, but them together. What's your reaction to seeing these two type of minds and these talents in the same clubhouse now, and ultimately the type of experiences that you had when you were with both of them with their respective teams?
Yeah, I would say thinking about Jake because I was fortunate enough to be there when he got called up, and one of the things I remember about him is just like he's so athletic. He's so athletic. He played shortstop at Stetson, which is just down the street here from, and I played against him at JU, and so he didn't really start pitching until his junior year, and so he ended up having. So I kind of knew him because we had the same scout, Steve Barningham, and so I was able, and then I was rehabbing as well too when he was down there after he got drafted. He was in the instructional league, and he has. I'm gonna do left. He had Tommy John surgery, and it was almost at that time, kind of 2010, and then I will fast forward it to now, 2020. That's like that 22, that kind of 10 years where he's gotten that work in. You know what I mean? And then to take it back, I remember when he got called up, just how easy the ball came out of his hand and how much he repeated his delivery. And then every now and then, not every now and then, he always had good at bats. And then when you would watch him run down the line, like he could move. Like he would just float down the line and you would just see, man, like how does he put his body in this position? Because he's so big. And then now when I see him out on the mound, he's just like this. And it puts everything where he wants, nice and easy, and just unlocks like 100 on you. And like he grabbed 7 punch outs out of the first 9 batters he faced the other day against the poor Rock Show, man. I was so happy I wasn't in there. I was so happy. I can't explain to you. And the thing is I'll say, like, the thing is just with my eyes, and this isn't taking it, there's nothing to be taken away from what he did that night. It wasn't as sharp as I think he was the first probably 2 starts, maybe, at least the finish, maybe through the zone. And then I went and took my son last year to watch him in Atlanta. When I think he gave up the 3 in the first, where they kind of stung him when they started swinging at the rosin bag, basically, like they decided they were going to hit no matter what. And by the time I think they kind of caught on, it was like 3-0, I think. But then he went and grabbed like 12 punch outs. Like everybody started getting struck out. I was like, oh my goodness. Oh dear. And so like that's what he's got in him. That's when he was Bob Gibson. Like that's why I took my son to Atlanta. I was like, man, they almost got rained out, I thought. And I was like, hey, Bob Gibson's throwing tonight. So we're gonna go watch him because that's the season he's having. So, now I think, even Rec and I were kind of talking about it earlier. What does it look like to get them ready for this run? Because that's where they're heading. I mean, that's where they're heading. And so he looked good the other night. And then Max did. I mean, I saw, unfortunately, they lost today 1-0, but I was looked up in the 6th. I think we landed, and it was 0-0, 1 hit apiece. It was, everybody was ready for the getaway day or day off. I get it, man. It happens. I mean, that's a big weekend for those guys too. There's a ton of energy in the stadium all weekend, and then you got the turnaround, and you got the off day tomorrow. And it's like, well, to say I haven't looked forward to an off day on a day game is, and didn't pay attention to the 5th inning would be a lie. I've done that before. Like, man, I want to get to the off day, man. Tired. You already took 3 from them. It's the bonus game, but you already got the 3. Happens.
Rick, you wanna chime in, boss?
I got nothing. I'm just so happy to see you, Murph, to get to listen to you. Just give out all this free knowledge, man. Are you going to be? First of all, I want to thank you for coming on. Then I want to talk about quickly, because you mentioned it early on, the work that your wife's doing with the Mets, with the prom series. I love philanthropy. I love giving back. It was something I wish I did more of as a player. I'm trying to get into it now that I'm past that point. But I want to thank you guys for continuing to do that work, because to me, that's what this is all about. You get to play a game, and you used to say this to me sometimes, that this isn't the real world. Like playing baseball, we got to be a part of something that it wasn't really the real world, but you get to give back to people, and you get to really help people in the real world. I just love seeing things like that. And then finally, and I'm going to bring this up just because I don't know if my cohorts wanted to or not, but I got to bring up one story, one fun Murph story from my time. This might be, it's probably one of my favorite stories, and it's actually not a great story for me, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway. We're in St. Louis, Murph, and I don't remember the situation. I don't have that memory you have. I think it was like first and third. Actually, it was first and third. There was I think Matt Holliday. I want to say it was Matt Holliday. I could be wrong. Hit a pop up to you. This is before it was first and third. Runner on second. Hit a pop up to you. You kind of did like a dance. You ran back, turned around, ball fell. I don't, like whatever. It happens, right? Ends up being first and third. Next pitch, boom. He takes off from first. I throw down to second. There's 2 outs. I had him by about 15 feet. Murph comes running in, charging, cuts it off, throws it home. Or no, throws it to third. I'm sorry, throws it to third. And I forget who was on third. Might have been Matt Carpenter. Just dives back in safely. Runner gets the second. And I stood at home plate like this. Murph, what are you doing?
Yeah,
And then I remember my favorite part, and this is, I'll let you take it from here. The next day, that was the last game of the road trip or something. The next day, or maybe it was a couple of days later, we get back into New York, and you come up to me like, "Hey, Brett. So Tori was watching the game in St. Louis, and apparently you were out there." I just lost it. I was like, "I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to show you up. I was just confused. I had to tell the story. It was one of my favorite things with you because you were so like, you came up to me. People could have been really like upset about that. They could have given me a hard time. Obviously, you were very, Rick. Look, man, I know it happened, but like, can you not just show me up next? I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, Murph. I didn't mean to do that.
No, and the thing is I totally get where you're coming from, because I'll tie into that is like I would just have these rushes of blood to my head, you know what I mean? And just on defense, especially, because I played defense like tentatively and passively, and those who could play aggressively, I just didn't have it in me. I was always, and so like, but then I would pick the times to be like aggressive, and it's like, no, it's like stupid, you know what I mean? Kind of like just not understanding the situation. And so I'd be like, man, I understood why you did it, because it's like, you weren't the only one doing it. There were Mets fans across, Queens that were just like, dude, what, just tag him. And then we get to go in the dugout. And so that was kind of like, okay, man, I get it. It's just, yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? So we had our talk.
It's funny you mentioned about the passive and then like picking points to be aggressive, because another thing I remember about you would tell me, you were the first person that ever told me this. You told me you couldn't, at the time, this was in like 20, maybe 14. You told me you never saw spin on a baseball. And I was like, what? And you said that you just never saw spin. I didn't understand it. But then you would also tell me you would go up in some pitches, you would literally just say auto hack, like I'm swinging, like
call a hit.
How did
myself,
that,
suckers? Yeah, tell TC that. TC freak, because I called a hit and run on myself. Skip, gotcha. Well, what it was is like what I wasn't doing, but I had this uncultivated skill of barrel accuracy, but I didn't know how to do it in a positive count and get to the pull side and do damage.
Until he got to Washington in 2016 is what he was going to say. Rick,
2015 postseason. I'll give him the 2015 postseason. Yeah. That's what he figured out.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would cheat, because I had barrel accuracy. I didn't swing and miss a lot. You know what I mean? And then what I would do is I would just leverage that the pitcher had to throw me a strike because of the counter of the situation. If he did, I'd get on time. If he didn't, I'd be out, or I'd make marginal contact. And so what happened was the freaking league figured this out, and I started getting a lot of marginal freaking pitches. I was like, this is not going to work. Better strength that zone up a little bit, because they keep chucking everything at you and you keep swinging at it. And so that's what happened. And so, so it was learning how to get to damage to the pull side on my terms, instead of being like at the mercy of whether or not I got strikes. Because I would go in stretches. If I got strikes, I hit. And if I did get strikes, I struggled, because I didn't walk. Like Rick, you would walk, David would walk, and you guys would take pitches. I'd be like, who takes that? You know what I mean? David would take it, and he'd take his shin guard off and he'd flip it, in his bat. And he just pranced to first. And I was like, who walks, man? No way. I didn't have it in me. I couldn't do it. 3-2 was one of my worst counts. K-Log told me.
Wow.
He's like, you're almost better in 0-2 than 3-2. You got to just start taking.
That's amazing. Rec, I'm glad
I didn't have it in me, though.
I'm glad you brought up that St. Louis story, Rec. I was actually going to bring that up after you asked something else and then close it. But Murph, thank you again. You've been so gracious with your time. I do want to ask you one last thing. It's a little more fun, maybe not a baseball intricacy question, but obviously you see what's going on right now with Edwin Diaz and Narco, and it's just making national media. What happens when he comes in the ninth and that song blasts, Citi Field becomes a party, right? I always say that you and Jurius Familia walked so that Edwin Diaz could run when it came to walk-up songs, because when Donzak Kuduro came on in the ninth with a lead, Citi Field was a party, and every time you stepped up and Shipping Up to Boston came on, I mean, that place was just absolutely electric.
That's cool, man. It gives me goosebumps. That because we're entertainers kind of by heart. Like, that's what we signed up for, and we just have the part of our entertainment is this common goal that this organization in group gets to go on. And so to hear that you got entertained was like, that's cool, man. That's really cool.
Field, it was a party every time you stepped up. I do want to know, why'd you pick Shipping Up to Boston? Obviously, Dropkick Murphys, that's the obvious connection. But are you also a big fan of The Departed? Because that's one of my top 5 movies.
It was The Departed. So it was 2007.
Awesome.
And the unique, cool thing about the minor leagues is not that you don't do life with guys in the big leagues, but you have the ability to be a bit more individual proprietors, I would say. You're not really afforded that opportunity in the minor leagues. So you're with each other all the time. So we watched Departed on the bus all the time in the Florida State League. And they'd ping that song, and I'd be ready to go, and I'd want to bat, and I'd want to go, and I'm like, if they ever let me in that big league, I think I'm going to try to go with this one. And then the funny thing is, actually, so Jonathan Papelbon, that's his song, in Boston, and Pap is from down here in Jacksonville, and I didn't know he had it when I picked it. And it's I didn't know they asked, and I was like, man, I told myself if they ever let me in the doors, I was going to pick this song. So here we go. This is the one I picked.
That's
awesome.
Amazing. It worked, man. It worked. Obviously, the place, like I said, it was electric every time you stepped up. And Murph, thank you so much as a fan for everything that you did for this team through tough years and then obviously through great years. And thank you. Oh.
Yeah. No, I was just finishing up. I told myself that if they ever let me in, the big leagues, I was picking that song. And so I guess I did it. So that was that was always the first song, no matter the other 3, hopefully, 4 if you ever get me, you know what I mean? Right. Where those kind of rotated, kind of probably said things about where I was in my life, but that first one was always the same.
Love it. Love it. Murph, I was just saying this when you cut out. First off, as a fan, and I think this is on behalf of, on behalf of T and all the fans watching and listening. Thank you for everything you did for this team through some tough years and then obviously through some great years. We appreciate it. You were always a blast to watch. And then on behalf of the show, thank you so much for your time. You were more than gracious with it, and we really appreciate it, Murph.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. Rex, it's good to see you, man. You look good, dude. Look at you. How sharp you are. I should have tightened it up a little bit. You know what I mean? You look good.
Murph, you look great, buddy. It's great to see you. I like the flow. I wish you had the flow going right now instead of the hat. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't bad the other night. It wasn't bad.
It was nice the other night.
Okay, so I think I do. So I'm not on Twitter, but every now and then I go in there and check out what's going on. It's kind of like a public think tank. And some guy goes, Murphy's hair looks like Max Cady. And then I had to look it up, and I was kind of like, that's not a bad call. I might have to think about that. So
I love it. On that note, one of the best hitters we've ever gotten to watch, 2015 NLCS MVP, Daniel Murphy. Murph, thanks so much.
Guys. Thank you. That was a ton of fun. Rick, guys, thanks for having me. Ton of fun.
Thank you, Murph.
Thanks a lot, Murph.
All right. Yeah. Cheers.
I'll catch you.
That was a blast.
That was phenomenal. Yeah.
You never know where conversation is going to go. You never know what's coming. It's just buckle your seatbelts and hold on, because that's how he played, and that's how he does it. That's him. It's awesome.
I want to know your guys' biggest takeaways from that. I mean, my biggest is I could have talked to him another 2 hours. Just like he talks hitting, and you're just like you're leaning in.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's brilliant.
I've said this about you, Rec, as well, but I texted my brother for like a minute, and he's very excited to be checking out the pod when it comes out. And I said, it should be illegal to be as knowledgeable as what Daniel Murphy is. And he's like, oh, I'm really pumped now to get into it.
It's like a younger Keith Hernandez almost. And I wanted to say this to him to really juice him up, but it's like I talk about McNeil and the Keith Hernandez comps. Murphy was that same gap to gap, just he talked about not striking out often, just putting wood on the ball even before his power came in his later years with the Mets, and then of course with DC. He was just a great gap to gap. I mean, he was a doubles machine. It was ridiculous.
He was unstoppable.
Yeah. But what were your guys' favorite parts or favorite things? I mean, Rec, anything in there that you heard that you were like, oh, that's my first time hearing that from him?
There wasn't a whole lot. I really like just when he talks hitting in general. Like this is the baseball nerd in me. So when he starts talking and uses terms and like really gets into what it means to hit and how much he loves it, the passion he has, that's not fake. Like that is who Murph was, that is who Murph is, and that's who Murph is always going to be. And I think to me, just hearing that passion come out in him, that's what made it great to be his teammate. That's what made it great to be around the guy and to hear him talk. That's why I was excited to have him on the show, because it's so apparent, it's so obvious just how much he loved to play the game, the energy he played with it. Like he talked about, not really loving defense but how he would just like, he would pick his moments and he would just go. That was the guy I saw all the time on the field. And I never really understood it. But now, like, as time's gone on and I've continued to talk to him and you continue to, you hear him talk, that is literally just who he is. And to me, I think that's just awesome. It's just great to hear someone who knows as much about the game, has been around the game so much, and has given so much to the game and gotten so much from the game. And he'll tell you that too. It's really cool just to hear him talk about it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like you said, man, when he talks hitting, you're just like mesmerized that you're learning so much.
Yep.
T, what about you, man? I mean, your first year really being a diehard was 2015. So he was front and center with that team and its success. What was the coolest part for you?
I mean, just the entire experience overall. I mean, again, for him to have the type of impact he had down the stretch in the playoffs, to have this personal conversation about breaking down everything about that run. Of course, we've done the same thing with you, Rec, but it's awesome to hear, different players from that same club's perspective, especially someone like his, again, who had that type of impact, and just his plate discipline, just something that always mesmerized me. Is more so, honestly, again, as a fan that didn't get as involved with the Mets until around 2015. During his time in DC, I was so blown away on how locked in he was on every single pitch. It was like I wanted the Mets to give him Bonds treatment every single time he went up. That felt the only way to really deal with him when he had a career 355 average against us. Let's be real here. So to hear him discuss exactly, the type of mindset that he goes into, and especially the counts that he doesn't favor him. But, as a fan, for me at least, when I watch at bats, and I'm thinking in my mind, like what's running through a player's, thought process? Because some guys are very different than others. But, you think guys are like, you're hoping for this certain pitch, or they're thinking in their head, I'm feeling very confident here. So to hear him kind of explain what's going on in his head, pitch by pitch, that type of thing, depending on what they're throwing at him, was really, really interesting to hear, and just overall phenomenal breakdown by him. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. No, that was a lot of fun. I will say the one thing I was debating whether or not I should throw in there, Rec. I don't think I told you this. I said this to Tyler earlier today. In the winter of, I don't know if it was 2015 or 2016 yet, but after that season, my grandma stopped by the house one day, and she comes in, older Italian grandmother, like we've all got, and she comes in and oh, Joey, I got you something, and I'm like, oh, grandma, I'm thinking it's like a tray of meatballs or eggplant parm. I'm like, what'd you bring? And she's like, I was just at Modell's getting, my cousin a water bottle, and I couldn't believe they had Daniel Murphy jerseys for $50. I had to get you one. I'm like, oh, grandma. I said, they were $50 because he just signed with Washington.
He just signed with Washington. Yeah, that's awesome. That's so funny. That is so great.
Jersey for 48 hours. and I made my way back to Modell's. I returned it. Got a Harvey jersey, which I don't know. I mean, that was no better of a.
I would have
purchase
kept
at
the
end of
Murphy
it.
jersey. I'm just saying that's I don't know.
At that point, I'm like, oh, the guy was just nails in the playoffs. Came back from injury, looks great, and then, but yeah, that is it is what it is, guys. Look, we've got a big series coming up with the Dodgers. I mean, the Mets have a cupcake schedule the rest of the way, but this is one of two really big, important series. Obviously, the Dodgers coming up this week, the Braves first games of October. So let's just kind of quickly get into this Dodgers series. We don't need to harp on it too long. Obviously, Murph took up the majority of the show, and that was phenomenal. But looking at this series, the Mets are back in the win column after a 4-6 road trip. I use the air quotes because of 2 games at Yankee Stadium. 3-1 against the Rockies. Should have been 4-0. Obviously, it stinks to lose when Scherzer is on the bump and pitches as well as he did. Bats need to wake up, right? Is that the consensus? We had one little offensive outburst, but for the Dodgers series, a team that is now 50 games over 500, not even into September, the bats need to wake up for this one, right, fellas? Because the pitching looks great.
Absolutely. I mean, we discussed it, in depth from our last show, how it feels like that now is the perfect time. You're facing a rock bottom Rockies, right? This is a time for the bats to break out. Alonso had that bomb in game 1. Nice. He had, of course, that walk off with the crazy 7-6 win. When Mark Hanna continued to be the best extra base hits machine that we've seen over this latest stretch for the Mets. But yeah, it's an offensive thing for this team still. Lindor has been in a rut. He's almost like 0 for his last 20. There's a lot of guys right now that are in ruts at the wrong time. And I'm curious to see. I really am curious because this is a Mets team that should have easily swept this Rockies series, in my opinion. Playing as all much bias aside, I think about what the Braves would have done potentially against the Rockies in this matchup. And it's hard for me to not believe that would have been far more lopsided than what it was. So for me personally, I'm looking at this and saying, okay, why can't the Mets come out and do more here? But they need to do it against the Dodgers. And I do hope that, especially with Jake on the bump for game 2, that the momentum, it's going to be different. Citi Field is going to be rocking regardless on the Mets losing their final game in this series against the Rockies. It's going to feel like a playoff atmosphere every single game. And I truly hope that the Mets can ride this momentum now that they will get from the fan base and really put on a show. Because again, not that you necessarily need to make sure you win this Dodgers series, but we know how important every game is down the stretch. The Dodgers are only one of now 3 teams, including themselves, that the Mets play from now until the end of the year that are above 500. And Dodgers are just casually 50 games above 500. I mean, this team went 20-5 in August thus far. Mets went 18-10. So they're nonstop winning. I need to see the Mets provide some offense and the guys that are getting paid the big bucks, starting with you, Lindor. I love you, and some others. We got to get these bats going sooner than later. Absolutely.
Rick, what's the biggest thing you want to see?
I think the offense is a big point to me. I watched this Rocky series, and look, the bullpen statistically pitched well. Like they didn't give up a ton, right? Like, I mean, it wasn't like Lugo actually looked really good. I thought Seth Lugo went out and pitched really, really well. Ottavino got a couple of saves. I still not sold on him, but that's never really going to happen for me. That's just how it is. There's still something missing in that bullpen. I still need to see a little bit more. I am excited to see how it plays out in this Dodgers series. You have a lineup in the Dodgers that, you're not going to see from any other team in the big leagues, basically. I mean, this team rakes. You could talk about the Braves, and they're a very good offensive team, but this team 1 through 9 is special. Even if it's Max Muncy, who's having a really down year, he can still do. He's been starting to get hot. There's a lot of things this Dodger lineup can do. What's that?
I said he's having as good in August as anyone. He's having like a Goldschmidt McNeil type August.
Exactly. So you talk about some of these guys and that lineup over there. It's really impressive. So to me, I have to see not just look. You want to see the starters go out there. Whether it's Walker, obviously he's got to turn. DeGrom's got to turn. Bassett. So we're going to see 3 very good pitchers going against this Dodgers. But I want to see this bullpen. I want to see how they come in. I want to see how they're utilized. Different matchups, what Buck wants to do. Is he gonna kind of show his hand and go kind of all in? Show me like a playoff-like atmosphere in the way that he manages these games, because that's kind of what I saw in those Yankee games. It seemed like it was a little bit different. There was some experimentation going on, and that's what I want to see kind of in this series. What do they do as a team? How do they attack this Dodger lineup? Offensively, look, it's been a struggle, but I think they got almost a pass here with this Dodgers team right now, whether it's Haney, Anderson. They've both been great. Don't get me wrong. They've both been great as Dodgers. But if I'm a hitter, I'm going, yeah, give me the two lefties. Give me the two guys, that throw 91 to 93, 94. They, don't have a ton of stuff that I'm too worried about. Yeah, the last day you get Dustin May. We don't even go there. 99, 100. Somehow that guy gets hit sometimes.
Stupid.
I don't know how. It's ridiculous. But look, you want to see them wake up. You want to see them do some things. I think the back end of that Dodger bullpen is actually probably the weakest link. You talk about Kimbrel if he's even their closer. I think this offense can get to them. So to me, it's going to be about, all right, score some runs, maybe hit a few homers, and definitely if you're not in the lead, just keep showing that fight, because I think with this Dodger team, you're going to have a chance for some late wins potentially. We actually saw it at the time of this recording. At the time of this recording, it was last night. At the time you hear this, it was 2 nights ago. We saw the Cardinals get a win on the Braves because Kenley just didn't have it. I mean, walking guys, gave up a hit, and things happened. I think the Mets have a similar, can have a similar approach with if Kimbrel's in late in one of these games and maybe they're down. I think they have a shot in any of those situations. So to me, it's just going to be really about how this team pitches against that Dodger lineup, keep themselves in the game, and give that offense a shot to do what they need to do.
Yeah, didn't the Marlins just steal one from the Dodgers pen, by the way? I think Alcantara threw a complete game.
Yeah.
They won 2-1, and they were
It was
down
a
1-0.
base loaded jam in the 9th, and he got out of it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That was a crazy game.
They got to the pen, and the Marlins, excuse me, one of the worst offenses in baseball. Let's call it what it is. They don't score a lot of runs, but they were able to get to that Dodgers bullpen. So for the Mets, my biggest takeaway, Tyler, and I know you want to add something.
Yeah.
It's just, when the Mets are playing their best baseball this year, whether or not they're lighting up starters, they're working counts, and they're getting guys out of the game early. And if you can do that to the Dodgers, I'm very confident in this team. If you can't, if Anderson's going out there for 7-8 shutty like he did, in Dodger Stadium when the Mets played there on that Friday night game back in June, then you're going to have some issues. But get to that Dodger pen. That's definitely probably their only weakness. T, what was up, man?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was going to mention, because Rekka, it was interesting for me to hear from you, like kind of how, not that Heaney and Anderson are guys that just brush off, but they're guys that you feel that they're favorable matchups. And for me, as someone that, again, has watched the Mets all year, I don't know how much I can necessarily agree with that. I'm really curious to see.
Because they're lefties, you're saying?
Yeah, not just lefties, but guys that don't have overpowering stuff. But again, you saw the Dodgers pick up Heaney really quick this past offseason, right? It didn't take them long to get Anderson. And they're phenomenal with their player development with guys that are already veterans established in this game. These are the latest examples. Heaney, again, a sub-2 ERA, Anderson a 2.7. And they're just everyone and their mother that goes on this Dodgers team always blossoms to have career years. So that's the thing for me. It's like, I don't know how the Mets are going to match up here, especially because I think for lefties, I'm curious if Brett Beatty is going to start at least one of these games. We saw Eduardo Escobar start his first game back with the Mets against that being in Freeland. 1-0 for 3 left, 5 runners on base. He still looks like a guy, in my opinion, that has an injury to his oblique because he couldn't hit from the right side of the plate originally when he was playing through that injury. So, I'm curious to see if Beatty's going to be matched up in that lefty on lefty. But more than anything, Lindor has had great success in the second half against lefties. Let's see more of that. Alonso, same thing, because Pete, something I've noticed with him is he can either have it or he simply doesn't have it against lefties. I feel more often than not we haven't seen that. So, yeah, these guys don't have the most overpowering stuff. You're right. But how technical are they going to be against this Mets team that, again, is really trying to get this offense in a groove? Well, has been pretty mediocre for the past 2 weeks outside of that Philly series where they always tend to do well in that batter's box. So, yeah, that's just, my final takeaway. It will come down to that pitching. And I think more than anything, I love, and I'm curious if you guys agree or disagree, having Jacob deGrom as the number 2 starter here. And this is from a fan's perspective because, okay, let's say in the hypothetical, the Mets go down 1, right? Then you got Jake for 2. Best scenario is the Mets win that game 2. Then they have the momentum going into the rubber match. Or in the other scenario here where you say win game 1, then you're already looking for the series victory with Jake on the bump in game 2. It may not mean much, but just for me personally, having him in game 2, I think is definitely going to be a positive for this club. So, Rec, going back to you as a player standpoint, do you agree or disagree on the notion of, depending on the pitcher that you have for a series like this, it very well could have maybe more benefit than, say, Jake going game 1, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you'd always want to get out on the front foot. You want to put your best foot forward. So to me, having that guy for game 1 would be great, because if we win game 1, then it's just, yeah, okay, all we got to do is 1 out of 2. We can take the series. Look, and in this situation, the Mets are going to be at home. So I think they certainly should be expecting to win 2 out of 3. That's the mindset you use no matter who's coming in. I don't care if it's the Dodgers or who it is. You expect to take care of business at home. So to me, I would love to have him go in game 1. The fact that he's going game 2, it doesn't really matter. To me, this is regular season. I'm trying to win at least 2 out of 3. You win 2. You win the series at home. You split the series on the road. That's how you have a great season. That's all you need to do in baseball. It's actually very simple. It's very easy. When you say it like that, it's not easy to do. But I think this Mets team has everything it takes to compete with this Dodgers team right now. It's just going to be about that Dodgers lineup, man. I'm telling you, they're so good. Freddie Freeman has been otherworldly. Justin Turner has turned it on in the last month or so. And like we said, Max Muncy, you could talk about Trey Turner, Mookie Betts. The list goes on. It's a very good lineup. It's just going to be interesting for me to see how, I think Jake's going to be fine. He's going to attack this lineup. We saw Alcantara do it, like you said, last night, 2 nights ago when you hear this, but Alcantara a few days before that in Dodger Stadium got his stuff handed to him by this Dodgers lineup. So we'll see what happens, but I do think, and I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup specifically. To me, when Jake goes, as long as he gets a little bit of run support, I'm good. I don't even care.
It's funny. I almost wish he was going.
Oh, Joe, pump the brakes. Sorry, you're getting bad audio issues.
I heard
real quick.
it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. You want to try again? Let's hear it.
That better? Is that working?
No, you're underwater, Joe.
Yeah, you're underwater.
You guys can wrap the show.
Okay, that's fine. Unplug your headphones, and then we'll be good. I mean, talk about technical issues. Of course, it happens when we have more. I mean, again, these things tend to happen, but that's fine. Again, this was an absolute blast. This was episode 18. Bleav in Queens, guys. This will also be the big series. My birthday's on Tuesday. I thought Jake was going to pitch on Tuesday. He's pitching Wednesday. That's fine, though. So I'm going to be excited to watch that, for my big day. I saw we had some recent birthdays, too, for you. Rec with your family, Joe with your family. That's awesome. A lot of big stuff happening here in the late month of August. But, guys, for Joe Serralo at, of course, Serralo Sports Doc, doing great things with his podcast every single week. Make sure to check him out. And also on Twitter at Anthony Recker. That is Anthony_Recker on Twitter. We're going to make sure we get the handle right. Make sure to check him out for MLB Network and doing great things for Apple TV.
Guys, I got to check on Instagram.
No way.
Wait, is my audio back?
Yeah, you're good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I saw that when I tagged you in something today with the preview.
I had one of our social media guy at MLB Network, just Billy, what's his name? Billy Lee, I think. Just text me the other day. He's like, "Hey, you want me to get you a check on Instagram?" I was like, "Sure, you could try, but they keep denying me. I don't know. You could go for it." He texted me back like 5 minutes later with a picture of it with a check next to it. I was like, "Okay, I guess it's that easy." Look at that.
Like what? That's
Billy Lee with the magic touch. I got to get in touch.
I mean, there you go.
Amazing. Guys,
Unreal.
Great episode. That'll do it. Bleav in Queens. Again, head over to Bleav.com/shop. We've got merch. Get wrecked, baby. We'll see you next time out.
Oh, that's not it.